Join us as we discuss everyday issues, sharing real stories with friends, laughing and learning together, touching lives one at a time, inspiring each other to live life in victory. This is Table Talk with Patience Mlengana.
Welcome to Table Talk. With me around the table today is Lillian Ramphele. We are going to talk about drug trafficking. Welcome, Lillian.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you today. Tell us what happened. Where did it start?
Well, actually, it started with my husband passing. I received a call on the 27th of March, the year 2000. It was my daughter who was 15 then. And she was very frantic on the phone as she said, Mommy, where are you? And before I could even answer, she then said to me, you better come home. I think Daddy is dead. Wow. And I went numb with shock. And a friend took me home, drove me home. I was in town. And a friend drove me home. And when I got home, I could see, you know how we are black folk, I could see people, the movement of people. And when I got in, my worst fear was confirmed. My husband of 15 years was lying lifeless in our bedroom. Now, that was the beginning of the end of my life, so I thought. I had no relationship with Christ then. So I believe the whispers of the devil that it was over, not realizing and not knowing that it's not over until God says it's over. And life took another turn because shortly after that I was called to the deceased estate.
After the funeral? After the funeral. Mm-hmm.
And there I was informed that liabilities were more than assets. So they had to auction.
Auction what?
Auction the assets to be able, property to be able to, to pay creditors. Mm-hmm. And when I say it was tough, it was so tough for me. My husband had been in business, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And
why were you not working?
We just agreed with my husband that I would be a stay-at-home mom. Okay. And my husband had always cushioned me, and he was this father figure to me.
How old was he?
There was 22 years age difference between me and my husband. Okay. I had met him when I was just 18,
okay. Okay.
And so he was always protective of me. He wanted to do things for me. He wanted to make sure that I'm comfortable. He wanted to make sure. And my husband was a go-getter. He was a fighter. He was a very wise man. And now with him gone, things really took another turn. Here I was now being a 40-year-old child. Can you imagine that? Because
you never worked.
Yes, because he was always there to do things, to make things happen. And I was just shielded behind the scenes, and I never took time, to learn for myself, how to fend for myself, how to do things. And I'm saying this to say to women, that's a no. I don't care, how wealthy your partner can be. Make sure that you are involved and you stay informed at least. And now I found myself at a very bad place. And I'm trying to get a job now. Here I am, I'm 40. And my husband had taken me to school, mind you. And to university, yes. I graduated at University of Natal, Pietermaritzburg branch. And now I'm inexperienced. Nobody's prepared to hire me. And besides, unemployment in our country. And what do? In frustration, you do what you know best when things are bad.
Your children were going to private schools?
My children were at private schools. Now, I can't even pay for the children. The children are being kicked out of schools. Here they're kicked out of private schools. we've lost our house, we've got no
So
car.
after they've taken the house was repossessed.
The grace of God, which I didn't realize then. A friend calls, a friend of my husband who was in business too, Mr. Solimare, if I may mention his name. And he calls and says, what is this that I hear? And I said, yeah, it's the truth. They've just auctioned my house. And he said, where? And I was given 7 days to vacate the house. And I said, things are bad. And he said, so what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. He said, where are you? I said, I'm in Seshego. And she said, can you get to Libuakhom? And then I went there. Then when I went there, he said, then he called again. He said, no, I thought I'd be able to meet you, but I can't meet you. But here's the deal. Go to the house number, this, that. Look at how God works. Even, you know, God will still, his mercy will still be there, whether you have a relationship with him or not, because God is love, God is kind, God is faithful. And he says, look for house number this and this. The long story short, he offers that I should stay there with the children. And he actually wanted me to rent the house, and I said, you know what, I'm going to be frank with you. I don't even have the money to pay the rent. So he said, okay, you can still stay, and they will sort things out. And that's how I got saved.
So after the children were kicked out of private schools,
I had to take them to public schools.
did they cope in public schools?
It was such a struggle for them, you know, naturally.
The
you know,
trauma.
the shock, the trauma, you know, and especially that I couldn't even get myself to sit them down and explain to them what was. I was so overwhelmed. I was so caught up in myself that I didn't even know what to say to them.
And before your husband died, they were used to holidays overseas and all
You
that.
know, we were quite comfortable. My husband was working very hard, and he made sure, he worked for his family and made sure that his family lived well. So, you know, my children just knew that when school's closed, there has to be a holiday, you know, be it overseas holiday or just around, you know.
Okay.
Yes. And all that was gone now, just like at the snap of a finger, just like that. And, you know, I couldn't see light. I couldn't see light through the tunnel. It was so dark. And what just started as numbing the pain, drinking, led to me losing control. And in simple terms, becoming an alcoholic.
You were addicted to alcohol.
Yes, because I just started drinking. I couldn't function. The devil is such a liar. You know, there were days where I couldn't even put bread. Now, when I say bread, I'm talking here about a loaf of bread. I couldn't even afford to buy a loaf of bread for my children. But tell you what, there would be alcohol in the form of friends or any old how. I would be able to get something to drink. People would offer you alcohol quicker than they would offer you bread. That's what I noticed.
Okay.
Nobody would come to you and say, are you hungry? You know? But I bet you somebody will come and say, do you want something to drink?
Wow.
And, you know, I went to a place that I never thought I would find myself. It was really bad. You know, my son would go to school because at that time, you must know that it takes long for an asset to be winded off. So now we're talking from 2000 to 2003. So by that time, my daughter is at university. She had to go. She was fighting. She was like, Mommy, all my friends are going to Wits, they're going to what? And we had no choice. She had to go to Tafliop. And I didn't even know how I was going to make it, how I was going to pay that money.
Fees.
Yes. And, but she still went. And every time they needed fees, I had a story. Every time they needed payment, I had a story for them to let them, to you know, get my daughter to stay on. And in that process, I'm beginning now to hook up, because now you're no longer even feeling comfortable with your friends who were in, you know, in the same place, in the same, what would I say? I hate to use the word status or whatever you may choose to use, you know. And you're kind of like, you know, scrounging back. And so I'm starting to connect with old friends. And amongst them is this one who has never really worked, but would always survive. And so when we connect, actually she's the one who called me, because news were just like, oh shame Lily, oh shame, oh shame. And so she calls me and she's like, how are you doing, Mhlobo? I'm like, hey man, I'm at a very bad place. And she says to me, come over. I was in Polokwane and she's in Joburg. She's one of my friends from teenage years. And she says to me, can you come over? I said, I don't even have a fare. And she arranges that I must come and visit her in Joburg. And we get there, and all I'm doing is drinking and getting drunk and, doing all that. And so I brought the courage, and I'm like, how are you making out? Because I'm struggling. It is so hard for me, so very hard. And at first she doesn't want to tell me, but she ends up telling me now about these parcels that gets dropped where, and you make money out of it. Long story short, I get introduced to the world of drug trafficking. And my assignment is to go to Bermuda. Okay, so I go the first time. This is in March now, in 2005. My first trip was actually supposed to be sometime in 2004. God is so great. When God has called you, He will always stretch out His hand to try and keep you. And in 2004, as I'm about to take the trip, I can't find my passport. I have to go and get a passport, and in the interim, the drug lord gets impatient with me and they send another person. And when eventually I get the passport, they say, no, I must hold on. They're kind of like no longer interested in me. So until 2005 in March, my friend calls me and say, do you still have that passport? I say, yes. And she said, okay, come over. So I knew what all that meant. So I go to Joburg.
Were you not scared?
I wouldn't really say. I was really, at a place where I wanted money. I needed money to put bread on the table for my children, plus my daughter. To
Who was at university at the time?
Yes. And so at that time, she's left university, but wants to study at least through UNISA. So I want to make out money to be able to facilitate so that she can do something for herself. And so I get to Joburg, I make my first trip to Bermuda. And
Where were the drugs? Where did you put them?
I swallowed them.
How
And
big was the thing? Too big? Could you swallow them?
it's the size of a button, a shirt button. And anything can happen. You just need one button to burst, and you're gone.
You can die.
You can die, yes. People have died.
Did you know that?
I didn't know at the time, because I didn't even know how I was going to take this down.
So they told you that when you get there, you have to do what? It's in your stomach when you go to the loo.
It's such a messy, you can use your imagination.
Yes, okay.
But anyway, I swallow them, and I want to say it is so dangerous because there was one South African who was also injured, but it's a male. And how they got him, apparently it burst in the stomach and he started getting sick in the plane. And he had to cry out for help. And when he was rushed to hospital, that's how they found that. So he almost died. And those are the stories that I heard afterwards.
Yes, okay.
And at that time, I don't know, because I would say to myself, Lele, what were you thinking? But the question is, was I thinking at all? Because I don't think I was even thinking. And so I make the first trip and I come back.
You actually went through the gate and everything.
Yes, I went through. Oh, Artambo, I went through Heathrow, Gatwick, and I went through Bermuda Airport, and nothing happened. So I was like, oh, wow, I can do this. Because when I came back, I actually said, you know what, I know I can do this.
Lily, we are out of time. When we come back, you will tell us more about how was your trip to Bermuda.
Friendship is important and needs to be cherished. Get a copy, The Heart of Friendship, by Patience Mlengana. Galatians 6 verse 7 says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." Get a copy, My Personal Sowing and Reaping Journal, by Patience Mlengana. These are now available at Rema Bookshop and online live store.
Welcome back to Table Talk. With me around the table today is Lillian Ramphele. We are talking about drug trafficking. Lillian, before we went on a break, you told us about your first trip. What then happened?
Coming back, I said, wow, this is easy. I can do this. And that was I went in March, and then I came back in April. What was supposed to be a week's trip ended up being a month. But
So
anyway.
you stayed in Bermuda for a month?
For a month, yes. In June, I got a call again. And you know, this time around, something said, don't do it. And you know, when God speaks to you, the devil counter speaks. And the voice of God is still, and that of the devil is very loud. And the devil was like, you know, you need this money, you know, you need to go, you know this and you know that. And, you know, already there was talk that, yeah, you're actually smart, you know, we could, because their area is Bermuda. Why? Because Bermuda, drugs have taken over Bermudians. And so I was like, you know, I could keep on doing this and I could really end up making money out of this. And I said, okay, I'm going. And I availed myself and I went. Went through OR airport. I attracted the what do they call them? The alarm. And I was frightened. And I got in. And when I got to Gatwick as well, the alarms went off again. I got really, really terrified. And I started looking, because this time around I was actually traveling with the drug lord. Because on my previous trip, I didn't bring all the money I was supposed to bring. So he was going with me to make sure that he gets his money. And but then the initial trip was that we are going to travel as married newlyweds that are going on a honeymoon. But on the day of the trip, things had changed that, you know, we're going to travel like we don't even know each other. So when we got to Gatwick, because I was panicking, and I was feeling very restless, I started looking for him to tell him that, you know what?
The alarms went off.
Yes, what could be the problem? I don't want anything that attracts attention. I looked for him and I couldn't find him.
You were on the same plane though?
Yeah, we were on the same plane, you know. So now we have landed, we're in Gatwick. But I'm trying to look for him, I can't find him. You know, it's like, especially that it was peak season, it was June, yeah. And it was by the time I landed, it's the 30th of June, you know, schools have closed, so it's a busy time. And I can't find him. Now, I was a heavy smoker. So I kept on going to the smoking lobby in England, now in Gatwick Airport. Looking around, couldn't find him. So eventually, when I'm from the smoking area, I see him sitting on the massaging machines downstairs. Then I rushed to him. I said, you know what, I feel frightened. And I said, okay, sit here. And then I sat next to him. And he prayed the heavens down.
What?
He prayed.
Prayed as in Christian prayer?
Yes, he prayed asking God to, you know, to protect me, you know.
Did he also swallow?
No,
anything?
no, I'm the one. This time I'm not swallowing. I had swallowed the first trip. This time I've got the stuff in my shoes. And he prayed, you know, and